Welcome to Raining Ducks. Jeff Morgan here, along with Jerry Harris to my left, and on my far left, Brandon Haynes. Guys, first podcast out of the gate, and this is going to be a lot of fun.
I'm super excited about it. First one, probably, I certainly don't have the nerves that the Ducks had against Idaho in the first game.
Let's hope this goes better than the first game that we saw on Saturday.
For sure.
I got to be honest. Yeah, that's it was a little bit rough. I think everybody was surprised what they saw, but I want to give a shout out to our main sponsor right now, Capital Nissan of Salem, right down there on Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Cherry Avenue, right here just in North Salem. Green Acres Landscape and GA at Home, as well as Advantage Heating, Air, and Electrical. Appreciate those guys for supporting us and making this thing possible, as well as Mid-Valley Media, John Strow, who's actually in here right now. Can't see him. He's in stealth mode right now, but he's making everything happen behind the scenes, and we really appreciate that too. So, guys, the podcast here it's a lot of fun. We're doing the video side of things now, and we've been doing this for a long time. I mean, you not as long as me, but I've been doing a tailgater show down at Autzen Stadium since 2003. And so we're doing a little bit different. That was radio, and now we're going video, which is really stinking cool. So I actually like doing something kind of early in the week because we've got the past game fresh in our heads, and we know, okay, what went down, what went good, what went bad, and what can we improve on in the next game. So, guys, let's kind of dissect this Idaho game last Saturday. It was really stinking hot out there. I don't know what it was on the field, but I think it was over 100 degrees for sure because we were like 93, 95 in the stands.
Yeah, it was hot.
Brutally hot. Hotness aside, I think we were really spoiled the last few years with Bo Nix and the maturity of our team. And all the expectations coming into this game,
right?
They were sky high. You heard the talking heads, all week long, all month long, all off-season long. There was an awful lot of hype to this, and the team just came out flat. It was you could feel it in the crowd. Mm-hmm. It was quiet. There wasn't as much excitement as normal, and it's tough to get up for the first game in Idaho, and I think about the guy we were talking to in the radio show. He's out there and he's talking about. I asked him, hey, what do you think the prediction is? And he's like, well, it depends on how long you're going to play your starters, and he thought it was going to be a blowout too. And then we get out there and it just comes out a little, the first couple of drives maybe okay, but then it just was flat.
Well, I think the Ducks came out flat, and give credit to Coach Eck and Idaho Vandals. They played a heck of a game. This was probably their biggest game of the season, I would think, for non-conference opponents, and they came out, they were well prepared, and they had a lot of energy, and it just seemed like Oregon just did not have the energy to start the game, and just made some really dumb penalties that killed drives, and so that couldn't happen.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, the offensive line really stuttered a lot of drives. Connerly Jr., he had that problem last year, and it looks like he hasn't solved whatever that is right now. And I think he had at least 2 of those offensive line penalties or false starts.
Yeah.
So you have to eliminate those things, because if you can't eliminate those, then that's really going to be a problem, because that especially in the red zone, if you have those penalties, you're going back 5 yards, and all of a sudden you've got, first and 13, first and goal to go on the 13-yard line. That's going to be a problem, and that's exactly what happened this last game, because they had plenty of yards.
Yeah. Lots of drive killers, and you see that in the first games. I all across the weekend, watching the games, you saw drive killers constantly with penalties and stuff. And early on in the season, the defense is usually ahead of the offense.
Yep.
Again, we were spoiled the last couple of years because Nixon and the team were so good, coming right off of the gates, but we weren't so good coming out of the gates here, and you saw that that our defense was there. You didn't see that our offense was there. And that offensive line, and you wonder about some of the continuity, losing Bedford there and moving the guys around on that offensive line. But, there's not really any excuses you can do for the way the Idaho Vandal defensive line stunted, and they knocked us back. They were all over the place. They were super disciplined in where they are at. They hit their assignments. It was crazy. I was just like, what's going on here?
And they made tackles when they needed to. They didn't miss a lot of tackles, and they just, like you said, they had some stunts and some twists that really kind of threw off the offensive line. And you're right, Jerry, moving Poncho from center over to right guard And then you have Charlie Pickard, the walk-on out of Portland. He came in. He played, he played all right for a walk-in kid. Glad to see that he could make that dream come true for him. But I'm not in full panic mode yet. You read some of the boards and you read all the talking heads. Oh, the offensive line. It's the first game, and let's get them. Lanning will have them prepared.
I was telling Jeff just before we turned on the videos. I didn't watch anything. I haven't watched an interview. I didn't watch. I just the fresh feel of it. In my own head about how do I feel about this game? What happened here? And certainly no panic on this part.
Right.
Next week we got Boise State coming in here, who is a team historically that we've had a really tough time with.
Yeah.
You just don't want to hang over from that first game. The little bit of post game interviews that I heard as I was driving home. The guys weren't too panicked about it, and they were disappointed in their own performance and stuff. And I think I heard Tez Johnson talking about, hey, we're going to go to the doctor. We're going to fix some things. We came out a little flat. He talked about Dylan Gabriel being a little hesitant and stuff. And, if you look at stats, he looked like the bright spot. 41 of 49,
380 yards.
But it looks like a pretty good game. But as you watched it unfold out there, it didn't flow as well as you would have liked it to flow. Some of that comes too with your offense hitting all cylinders, and you hit a couple of passes, you hit a couple of runs. The running game was not there early on. I think at the half we had something like 45 yards or something like that. There's just you got to hit some of those and start piling up some first downs to get that continuity going, and that just didn't really happen. Some of it was drive killers with the offensive line doing it. It was just early game.
Some of it with, with like you said, with the offensive line not gelling and making their blocks and missing some stuff. That really tightens up the running game. You need that running game to flow to loosen up the passing game. And it felt like Gabriel wasn't able to go through his progressions because he had guys in the backfield almost immediately. So it was like dump off, dump off, dump off. And it was, he played well. He threw the ball well. But he didn't have time to really go through his progressions, go first, second, third receiver, and find those open guys downfield.
I don't think he didn't feel the pressure very well. He didn't get out of the pocket at all. And so I think that if Dylan would have run the ball a little bit, I think that would have softened up the defense and made it spread out the linebackers a little bit. So at least there could be some running lanes up the middle for Jordan James. Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that was by design, being the first game of the season, you don't want to show your hand completely. There was one play, I think it was in the third quarter, where Dylan had an open field ahead of him. He was in the backfield. The line separated, and I was like, run! And he just stood there and looked for his receivers. And I get it. You don't want to injure your quarterback in the first game of the season. So, okay, yes, we were still winning. It was closer than it wanted it to be. But, just let him throw and don't injure yourself right out of the gate.
There were a few of those where my wife was screaming at him, "Why isn't he running that?" And I'm like, "Hey, easy." But I remember it was you or when we were looking at each other again. I was like, "Gosh, it feels like Idaho's in our playbook the way they were shutting down."
Sure did.
The quick throws, they took those away. Some of those quick outs and stuff, they were up on the line in certain cases where I'm thinking, how come they're up on the line in this when that's the pass we're going to do out there? And then they were in that 5 to 7 yard range right off the line. We had a little bit of room at 15 to 20 yards, but that's a much more difficult throw. And he hit some of those. But boy, the defense was prepared. Just seeing it from our vantage point this year, different seats and stuff, just seeing where the holes were in that defense. It's just like, okay, they're there. You'll see some adjustments. We're going to do it. I don't know if we ever saw adjustments.
I think Weiss is predictable just with his playbook offensively. And I think that's why Idaho was prepared, because I think that they ran the same plays that they ran a lot last year. So they knew exactly, they did know.
Will Stein?
Yeah, Will Stein.
Yeah.
So, I think that that was part of the issue there. I think they really did know part of the playbook, and they were prepared. They were very well prepared, like you said, Jerry. And so what do you do? You come out and you play hard. They had, almost, 500 yards of total offense, and Idaho, they had like 220 yards of offense. So it's just like, my gosh, you had a couple of big plays, and you got a couple of touchdowns there. But other than that, the Ducks pretty much dominated.
Yeah. And those touchdowns that they got were trick plays. I mean, the flea flicker for the touchdown. Defense, I have no concerns over. I mean, the two guys that we got out of the portal on the D-line, Jamari Caldwell and Derek Harmon, studs all game long. Brandon Johnson, that incredible interception that he made in the end zone.
That was so good.
That was great.
Mateo Uiagalelei.
Yeah.
Big
gosh,
tackles.
a couple of sacks.
Yep.
Played very well. Tatum Tuioti, still, that guy is so fast to me. Number 44 in there. Every time that guy comes in, I'm like, my eyes are finding him and watching him go because that guy, he's a beast.
Yeah.
He's Mateo's backup right now, but man, that guy can really move.
What kind of concerned me a little bit was that Bassa and Jacobs hardly played at all in the inside linebackers. I mean, you had Bryce Bedeker and Devin Jackson played a lot of the game, and I don't know if that was by design or if they're both nicked up a little bit or what the deal was.
And again, I haven't watched any interviews yet, but I heard that Bassa might have gone down a little bit, and they were really precautionary with him and kind of took him out and just said, hey, let's just play it safe. We're playing against Idaho, but
right.
They gave us all we could handle.
They did.
Yeah, no kidding. But it was, first game out of the gate, you've got a team that was probably looking out for you right when the season ended last year. So they were preparing. Ducks number 3 in the country. And, I think that the Ducks, maybe they thought they were overconfident a little bit coming in. They were just going to blow them out.
Yep.
And, maybe they were a little flat coming out of the gate. But because you're a 45-point favorite. And all of a sudden, you're coming in here, and these guys, oh, my gosh, well, they're playing you pretty tough. And so then it takes you a little while to get your momentum back, if you can get it back at all. And the Ducks did. I mean, shoot, it was 14-0 at halftime, so they were okay. It's just when they came out of the half, it's just like, my gosh, what team is this?
It was like Mike Tyson. Everybody has a game plan until they get hit, until they get punched in the mouth,
Right.
And Idaho came out and punched us in the mouth in the beginning, It certainly wasn't a knockout blow, but they, right off the bat, signaled that they were going to be competitive in this game. And it was weird because I was watching guys, Evan Stewart. I was so excited to see Evan Stewart play, and he was fast and he was quick in and out of cuts. Dylan didn't have enough time to let that play develop to do something with it. It was just off. It's just so strange.
Ferguson had a
line.
great game at tight end. I mean, he was the leading receiver for the Ducks, and you get that guy the ball, and he is just a horse. He'll run people over. He just has a knack of getting wide open in the flat and over the middle. And he's your go-to guy right now, except for Tez Johnson. He had a great game, too. Would he have a touchdown in there, too? That was a great play on the end zone, to finish that up in the fourth quarter to make it 24-14. So, they have a great receiving crew, but we have to Dylan's got to have time. And the offensive line has got to block, and it just seems like, man, we were so frustrated at that game, watching the offensive line not be able to open up holes and also not to protect Dylan Gabriel and allowing 3 sacks for crying out loud. I mean, my gosh, that's what Nick's had all season last year.
5 the last 2, come on now. The tight ends all day long. I thought Patrick Herbert had a good game. He was mostly needed to protect the quarterback, but Kenyon Sadiq, they had a lot of game planning for him. They ran the end around with him. I absolutely hated that fake punt, whatever you want to call that, whatever they did, where he took it and went around the end, and it didn't fool Idaho at all. And where it happened on the field, and then leads to that flea flicker, and just
insult to injury on that one. Yeah, that was bad. But and again, another learning experience. Okay, you come out with a win. I mean, everybody's saying, okay, some wins are ugly, and you got to get away with these things, and you got to get lucky sometimes. And did the Ducks get lucky? Nah, I don't think they did. I think that they were in control the entire time. But I got to be honest, when it became 17-14, it's like, okay, now Idaho's in the game. What are you gonna do, Ducks? You guys, but I'm telling you, They went down the field, they scored when they had to, and they looked really, really good doing it. So that's all they have to do. Realistically, just keep that momentum going, and hopefully they can do that on that last drive.
Absolutely. We could have been LSU today, or we could have been, Florida State getting upset in the first game.
Or Virginia Tech.
Oh,
right.
Losing to Vanderbilt.
That was a bad one.
Yeah.
So Jeff Morgan, Jerry Harris, Brandon Haynes on the outside there. We're going to call you the defensive end on the left side over there. He's got
Left side's the strong
sporting his
side.
duck hat. You got to love that. Jerry, I don't know. You got your Creekside hat on. I don't know where you've been, but
Well, all of my
it's a
duck hats
visor.
are green, and I thought the green screen might mess it up, so I don't know. I didn't want that.
You need to invest in yellow,
Yep.
apparently.
Yep.
So, yeah. So our sponsors again. Let's mention them. You got Capital Nissan right down there off of the Parkway and Cherry Avenue. We've got Green Acres Landscape and GA at Home out there off Gaffin Road and Highway 22. Appreciate their sponsorship, and Advantage Heating and Air and Electrical. Thanks to all three of you for supporting us on this venture here, the podcast. And this is fun. I like doing this at the beginning of the week. Mentioned that before, but it's good while it's fresh in your mind. And then looking forward to Boise State on Saturday, 7 p.m. kickoff, which I can't stand 7 p.m. It's like you're not getting home till 1 o'clock when it's all said and done. But you know what? It's going to be hot. It's supposed to be 93
Another
degrees
hot
again,
day.
so 7 o'clock's probably
Say it
going to
ain't
bode
so.
well for me. Oh yeah, it's going to be another hot one.
boy.
So Boise State taking on Georgia Southern at Georgia Southern this past Saturday, and that was actually a no defensive game right there, or lack thereof. What did Boise State end up with? My gosh, 56-45, and they were down in the fourth quarter and scored 21 unanswered points against Georgia Southern. And who is their running back? My gosh, I can't read the Ashton Jonte. Is that how you
Jonte.
spell his last name or say his last name?
I like the
200
way you say it. So
Jonte.
let's just go with that.
Yeah,
Jonte.
Jonte. It looks
very
French to
French.
me. I don't know. It's kind of blurry to me, but that's okay. 267 yards on the ground, 6 touchdowns. Georgia Southern, the Duck defense is not going to be the Georgia Southern
No.
defense. I can guarantee you that. That was the bright spot, I think, for the Oregon Ducks this past Saturday. Just that defensive line holding. They were under 50 yards rushing for the entire game. So, you know, you got to look out for the quarterback though too. I mean, he slung the ball pretty stinking well. What is his name? It's Madden Madsen, I believe, is Maddox Madsen is what his name is. And what did he throw for? 280 yards passing, a touchdown and an interception. So I'd say that's a pretty stinking good day too. So
What is his name again? Sounds like a comic book character. with the
Maddox,
M and the S.
Maddox
Peter
Madsen.
Parker. Okay.
Yeah, picked a pepper. I mean, I'm not sure. Maddox Madsen. So we'll get a bird's eye view from this guy, coming up on Saturday. But it seems like this team, from what it looks like, they're pretty well rounded offensively. Defensively, not so much. So are we going to be seeing another shootout on Saturday evening?
It's hard to go from one year to the next, but we've had such a hard time with Boise State, obviously.
We
in
have
the
not
past.
beat them, actually.
But they've always been so disciplined. They've always had great defense in the past, and they always had a great defensive game plan against us. I wonder, too, first game of the year, were they looking past Georgia Southern and planning and, waiting for the Ducks to get here and game planning against the Ducks?
I don't think so.
Hey, I'm just saying. You
I
never
don't
know
think
what's
so.
going on with that. But if they couldn't hold Georgia Southern,
Right.
under 20 points, under 30 points,
Right.
what did they say, 38, something like that? 40?
Oh, they had
That kind of-
45.
45.
actually, yeah.
That's a lot of points. I can't believe that they could bottle us up after that. There's not a chance.
And I think you'll see a little bit more the playbook being opened up, and maybe these open gaps that Gabriel has, he'll go for it. Whereas this past game, he just was not.
The improvement from game 1 to game 2 is always the biggest. I mean,
Yep.
you think about when we had that debacle against Georgia, we came back and played pretty solid ball the rest of that year. But the game plan after this, I know Dylan Gabriel, his first game with that unit and all that stuff, he'll come out a lot more comfortable in the next game. He's not gonna have those type of jitters and some of that hesitation that he had in this game. And I think the game plan will probably, Will Stein will step up, and the game plan will probably have a lot. Probably. Don't want to put that out. The game plan will have a lot more decisive plays that knows where they're going and hit their targets.
Well, and I wonder too, with some of the, you had the illegal formation where a Johnny Cornelius was lined up a little bit off the line, and guys
Several
were
of
like, "You're
them.
calling it on a Johnny." Connerly Jr. is lined up even farther back than he is. So how much of it is going from a Pac-12 ref to the Big Ten refs? Where before Pac-12 refs might not have called that, but then the pass interference one, where there was a big pass interference no call, it was like, oh, okay, I guess they're going to let him play football. So
It's hard to know. You're absolutely right. And I think there's a lot of things that you have to get used to, and every game's going to
Yeah.
be different because you're going to have a different umpiring crew every single game.
Yep.
So I don't think that you can really play much on that. If they call it, great. If they don't, then that's okay because I think, again, it's going to be different every game. But
There's at least two, I think 3 of those, and it had me watching the LSU USC game and seeing where those guys were lined up, and they were way off the line.
Yeah.
I'm like, where's the flag on this? It's just like,
Right.
come on, it's the same rule, guys.
yeah,
Yeah, but a different individual, and but you know what? I'm looking forward to not having Pac-12 refs. To be honest with
Oh,
you,
gosh,
because,
yeah, me too.
my
They were
gosh,
the
what a
laughing
nightmare
stock.
those have been. We complained about them, well, forever. So it'll be interesting to see how the Big Ten refs. Hopefully, they didn't do any recruiting on the guys that are out of a job now.
Oh, this guy's got experience. Where did he ref? Oh, maybe we go somewhere else.
yeah.
Well, I have to be honest. I mean, I'm looking forward to Dylan Gabriel, and I want to see how he comes out this time. And I think we're going to see him run the football because that's what made Bo Nix so much better last year and the year before. He knew when to pull it down and run the ball, and he could get. I don't care if you're just getting 7-8 yards. Go down. You don't have to take the hit. You just need to get positive yards and not go back 5. So
Right.
if you can get away from those negative plays like that, that's 3 negative plays that really hurt, obviously, 3 drives. So if you can eliminate that, I think that that's gonna benefit you tremendously.
Well, it is tough to criticize a guy that went 41 of 49 for 380 some
Well,
odd
if you're
yards.
gonna, that's what you're gonna do.
I tell you, I saw a lot of zip on his passes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He fitted into tight windows when he decided he was going to a certain guy. I mean, there was a lot to be, really excited about, and obviously his career speaks for itself in his previous 2 stops.
Yeah.
So it's there. The talent is clearly there. Just a little sloppy that first game.
Yeah.
But it's going to be that way. I mean, this is his first game at Autzen Stadium. I mean, everybody's psyched up. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on these guys because they've been touted. Everybody's been touting them to be national champion. Not everybody, but 2 out of 5 on ESPN, Herb Street, and somebody else. I can't remember. It wasn't McAfee. I think he picked
Dez.
George. Oh, it was Des. That's
Desmond,
right.
yeah.
Desmond Howard. So you got 2 of those guys. So the pressure is there. I mean, and you're thinking about that, and now you have to perform. That's going to affect a little bit coming out of the gate. And I think that they were a little bit too high on themselves, and now they've got to plug back into reality. And I wouldn't doubt it if the Ducks end up being number 10, dropping from number 3 this week.
Well, that wouldn't surprise
Not
me.
that it
at all.
matters.
And quite
Yeah, it
frankly,
doesn't matter.
I think that's the one thing that the BCS had right back when they did it. They didn't come out with a ranking until 3/4 of the season was
Right.
over. None of this early stuff matters. It was
No.
nice to be up there right off the bat, but I think it is going to take a loss, which I don't think will happen.
Really?
I think it's going to take a loss until to really make us drop down. But I could see some movement in there early on, just from early, first game perception.
There were so many good games, though. People blowing people. Alabama, for example. I mean, throttled. I can't even remember who they played. Probably Chattanooga. I wouldn't doubt it. But there were teams that really played well. Michigan, for example, they played really well. The Ducks just did not come out and play well. They didn't perform. If you're a top 3 team, you can't. You win 24-14, you're going down. It's just the way it is, especially early on. Even if you did not lose, it's going to happen. It's perception. Everything's
Oh,
perceived.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all about perception in college football. It's what makes it so much fun to argue about it. I'm just happy football is finally here, so I don't have to argue about politics with all the darn people on Facebook
Exactly.
anymore.
Just stick to ESPN, Jared.
Right?
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
Well, and to go back, we're not criticizing Gabriel. It's more of a it's a constructive criticism of, hey, yeah, you played great, but we want to see these types of plays because this is the guy that we had last year, the last 2 years, Bo Nix, and even Bo last year didn't run as much last year as he did his first year here. When he got hurt in that Washington game the first year,
Yes.
they really kind of shut him down.
It
and I
reminds me
wonder
of the
if
year we
that's
didn't
what Lanning
unleash
is
Herbert and let
on.
him run it all until the game against Utah where we let him run.
And he broke his collarbone. Is that the game?
Well,
he
that
broke his
was
collarbone?
the year before.
That was the year before. Yeah. But yeah, I don't. I think Lanning has, Coach Lanning has said, hey, we don't need to get you injured in this first game, and we're sitting here saying, well, you should have done this and you should have done that. But you know what? At the end of the day, like you said, 41 of 49, 380 yards. That's what you're asking your quarterback to do, and we won the game. So
I think the penalties, they were key. I mean, if we eliminated half of those penalties, I think the Ducks probably score about 34 points. They got 10 more at least, if not 34, 39, somewhere in that vicinity. And then that's respectable.
Yeah.
It is.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to the game, though. Like night games. What are you laughing at, man?
I don't know. Something's poking out of that door over there. I'm easily distracted. Squirrel.
Yeah, that is great. Well, we don't have a whole heck of a lot left time left in the podcast, but I know this is going to air on KYKN2 on Tuesday afternoon. So we're saying podcast, but you could say radio too. You could say you could really say whatever you like. All right, guys. So what do you think? What do you think about the Boise State game, just in its entirety? Just looking at both teams, both games that they've played, coming into Autzen Stadium, the crowd I think is going to be a little bit more boisterous than it was this past Saturday. I think everybody was sweating their rear ends off because it was stinking hot. And, I think that had something to do, the players, that had to affect, it's got to be about $1.10, $1.20 on the field. I mean, I don't care how old you are. I mean, you got that uni on and you're sweating your, what off.
I still can't get enough fluids, and it's Monday now.
I mean, they needed to have like 80 buckets of
I've
water down there on the field.
The home side of the field is in the sun.
Well, because winter comes.
Well, yeah.
And it gets cold in the shade.
Is that a Game of Thrones reference?
No, it's I haven't seen Game of Thrones, but
you're the one. Okay,
that's me.
All right,
yeah,
all right.
I haven't done that.
I hear it's pretty good.
Just
Well,
don't
you've
watch,
obviously
just don't
seen
watch,
it.
just don't watch the last season. No,
my
I am
gosh.
excited to see Boise State come in and play at Oregon, and I'm excited to see a Ducks victory this Saturday.
So what do you? I mean, what do you think that score is going to be? I mean, I think offensively the Ducks definitely need to show up. There's no doubt about that. Eliminate the penalties, because I know that Boise State they will score. There's no doubt about that. This is not an Idaho offense. We cannot make them look good. So
The thing about Boise State is their running back is good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to think of who I would compare these guys to, and I was thinking about the Colorado game last year, because there was so much hype around the Colorado game, and Colorado was going to come in and with that high-powered offense, and they were going to play so well against us, and how are we going to hold up against them? And then we went out and boat raced them 44-6 or whatever that was. But the running game is the great equalizer. If ball control, if they can keep the ball and get some first downs and stuff, keep the ball out of our hands, keep that rhythm away from us, that's the kind of thing that's the only part of this game at all that worries me. And other than the fact that it's Boise State, and I don't want to go down to Boise State again.
Again.
we don't want to have a LeGarrette Blount forearm shiver.
Gosh, yes.
But I think the game plan is probably for both teams, or probably the same for both teams. You have to stop the running game.
Absolutely.
And if you can do that, if you can run the ball and stop the running game, that is going to produce a win, bar none.
Nick Aliotti, I remember him talking on the Pac-12 network all the time, and he'd always say that. Rule number one in the defense, stop the run.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this defense is built to stop the run.
Oh, absolutely.
I think I don't have any issues over how the defense played last week. Maybe, I mean, if you want to nitpick, you could say the linebacker play was a little sloppy. There were a few times where, heck, Devin Jackson was facing the other way when they were throwing the ball, and it was like, hey, man, you got to be looking towards the team, not
There were a
the end zone.
handful of missed assignments, but overall, the line was terrific. But there were some missed assignments, both on the linebackers and the safeties. But overall, I thought they played really good. You're going to have that on occasion.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're right, Jeff, that the key to the game is to get the run game going. And so I'm really hoping that Coach Lanning and Coach Terry are beating on those offensive linemen this week, running extra laps, doing what they need to do, get that tightened up, get rid of the sloppy play, and, I think they'll
There'll
find
be
their way.
an awful lot of game film watched.
All right, hey, you've been listening to Raining Ducks right here in the studio. We'll be back next week on Tuesdays, and we'll see you then. Look forward to it. Until then, enjoy your week, and we'll be back next week. Take care, everybody.
Go Ducks.
Go Ducks.